For insight into what Yellen's appointment means for monetary policy in the markets, we're joined now by Peter Schiff, CEO and Chief Global Strategist at Euro Pacific Capital, and he joins us from Western Connecticut. Welcome to Market Sense, Peter.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, let's talk about it. What does this mean for the markets going forward? Accommodative seems like it's a lot more Ben Bernanke going forward, if not just a little more dovish. Is that your take?
Yeah, you know, her nomination is not unexpected, but I do think that he made the worst possible choice of the candidates that he was considering, although maybe Ben Bernanke could breathe a sigh of relief here because now he won't go down in history as America's worst Fed chairman.
All right, let's pick up on that. I said at the top that this was the worst job possible right now because everybody else was handing out the alcohol and you're going to have to take it away at some point. Do you agree with that, or do you think they're just going to keep kicking that can down the road?
Yeah, she's not going to take the alcohol away. She's going to spike the punch bowl with even more alcohol. She's going to take the $85 billion a month in QE that we're getting now, and she's going to take it up a few notches. I mean, it's going to be well over $100 billion a month. Who knows before she's through. She is going to resist ending this party as long as possible because I think she really believes all this nonsense, all this Keynesian stuff that she learned at Harvard or Yale or Berkeley. I mean, at least guys like Alan Greenspan knew better. I mean, they knew that this didn't work. They did it anyway because Greenspan had his roots in sound money and Ayn Rand and in the gold. He understood these things. I don't think Yellen's ever understood anything. She's just lived in liberal academia her whole life and worked at the Fed. So I think she really believes this nonsense. And so she's going to resist the cure as long as possible. She actually thinks that inflation is good, that you create prosperity and growth and jobs by debasing money. So this is a very dangerous person at a very dangerous time to be heading a very dangerous institution like the Fed.
All right, Peter, step our viewers through this process then, because right now with the minutes that came out today, it looks like the FOMC would want to begin tapering at some point in the near future, at least if not at the end of 2013, at some point in 2014. To not catch the market unawares again, they will have to step us through a process of telling us that things are looking worse than anticipated, that they need to step up the $85 billion to a higher amount. How do they do that without, I guess, losing any credibility that they still have right now?
Well, they've got no credibility with me, and anybody who's intelligent should have, figured out that they have no credibility. But for the people who trust the Fed, that is the tightrope that they're walking. I mean, they deliberately got expectations for a taper, knowing they weren't going to do it. I said it was their game plan all along because they can't tell the truth, that they can never taper because the economic recovery is not real. It's an illusion created by QE, and if you take away the QE, you take away the illusion. So they can't say that. So they have to pretend that it's a viable recovery, so they have to pretend they're getting ready to taper. But they know they can never do it. So the Fed is going to keep up making excuses why they're not going to taper, but they can't, because the minute they do, we'll be in a worse recession than we were before they started the whole QE.
Peter, you have said that in the past, that it is not an economic recovery in terms of what we're seeing. When you look at the FOMC minutes today, it almost echoes, to a degree, a little bit about what you're saying as it relates to they do see financial risk to the marketplace right now. But walk us through another aspect that is exacerbating this situation, which is, of course, the U.S. government shutdown and the debt ceiling. And is this the new norm that we are going to be living in as it relates to looking back to 2011? We're looking at it now again. There is the potential that they just extend the time frame here. Is this the new norm?
Well, the debt ceiling, if we don't raise the debt ceiling, then we actually have to deal with the problem right now, which is why we're going to raise the debt ceiling, because we don't want to deal with this problem. President Obama keeps saying that we raise the debt ceiling because we pay our bills. No, we raise the debt ceiling because we can't pay our bills. We never pay our bills. That's why we're almost $17 trillion in debt. And Obama wants to raise the debt ceiling so we can go deeper into debt and not pay even more bills. The president says it's about paying for things. No, it's not. It's about going deeper into debt to not pay for the things that we're buying. That's what's going on. So the debt ceiling would the solution. Unfortunately, we're going to get rid of it. We're going to raise the ceiling. We're going to have even more debt. The government shutdown is not part of the problem. Again, we need a lot of government to shut down. The problem is the government is getting bigger. In many cases, we have more government during the shutdown than we had before they shut it down. But this non-existent shutdown is also going to end. It's going to be back to normal in Washington, back to normal at the Fed, more government, more debt, more money printing, more inflation, and we're headed for a complete economic implosion.
So, Peter, we only have about 45 seconds left, but I want to make sure I'm understanding exactly what you're saying. You are saying if it was up to you, you would essentially go through October 17th, not pay interest on debt payments, let the U.S. technically enter into default, and then what? And what do you think the impact of that would be on the global financial markets?
No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we can still pay the interest on the national debt. The government has to cut spending on other things. Government spending has to shrink. Right now, based on interest rates at zero and all this QE, interest on the national debt is a very small expense. And as long as we can convince the bondholders to roll over their debt at these low rates, we don't have to default. Hitting the debt ceiling doesn't mean defaulting on our debt. What it does mean is cutting government spending, which is what I want. But eventually, we're going to have to default. It's not going to be a choice, because eventually interest rates are going to skyrocket when the Fed loses control of interest rates. And then when interest rates go up, we can't afford to pay the interest on the national debt. Even if we wanted to, we don't have the money. So in order to prevent the dollar from becoming confetti, in order to stop runaway inflation, we're going to be forced to default eventually. But right now, default is not a threat. It only is an option if the president chooses to default when he is under no real pressure to default. Except that he doesn't want to cut government spending. That's what we need to do to default.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us. That was Peter Schiff, CEO and Chief Global Strategist at Euro Pacific Capital.